Okay, let's take a little trip back in time. The year, 1985. The place, Singapore. We've kind of stumbled upon this amazing collection of old newsletters. Really, it's like a paper time capsule from a group called the Tamil Youth Wing. So let's dive in and see what their story can teach us about community, identity, and, that timeless drive to just make a difference. Right off the bat, on the very first page, we find this headline that just grabs you: 100% success. I mean, it's bold, it's super confident, and it immediately makes you ask, 100% success in what? And who exactly was this incredibly effective group of young people? This is the thread we're going to pull on.
So the group was the Youth Wing of the Tamil Representative Council, or TRC YW for short. And their mission? Well, it comes through loud and clear in this quote from a guest of honor at one of their seminars. They weren't just some social club, they were seen as a beacon of hope, a real driving force for progress in their community. And that idea really is at the heart of their whole story.
So, how did they become that beacon? Well, one of the first and biggest things they focused on was a powerful drive for education. But for them, it was about so much more than just helping kids pass exams. It was about empowerment, about opening doors to the future. And that brings us right back to that incredible number, 100%. So what was this amazing success? It was their pilot home tutoring program in a neighborhood called Woodlands. They took a group of 12 secondary school students who were struggling, gave them extra help, and every single one of them scored over 70% in 5 subjects. Now that's what 100% success looks like. But you know what? That successful pilot project was just the beginning. Their ambition didn't stop with a dozen students. They scaled up in a massive way. And that brings us to our next number, 2,611. That's how many kids across Singapore benefited from their larger educational assistance program in 1985 alone. And you can just feel the pride they had in their work. They were not shy about their achievements, not at all. The newsletter says, "No other youth groups have excelled our performance in the recent history of Singapore." And they said this success wasn't because of luck, but because of perseverance, hard work, and sincerity. But their work went way beyond the classroom. The second major part of their mission was all about building community, and they did it at every possible scale you can imagine, from these huge public festivals down to the most intimate little family gatherings. Just look at the contrast here. On one side, you've got the Mahona Gunanit, a concert that pulled in a crowd of over 6,000 people to celebrate local talent. And on the other side, a day at Kusu Island, a quiet little picnic for just 75 members to relax and bond. They could command a stadium, but they could also create a space for quiet friendship. Pretty amazing. And what's really powerful is how inclusive they were. One of the most charming details from the newsletter, talking about that picnic to Kusu Island, mentions that among the 75 attendees was a 2-day-old baby. I mean, it's such a tiny detail, but it speaks volumes about the kind of warm, multi-generational, family-like community they were building. And their vision went beyond just their own events. You see, 1985 was designated the International Youth Year by the United Nations, and the TRC YW was right there, an active participant. They were on the national stage, working with other organizations to promote social harmony and contribute to Singapore's development as a whole. So all of this amazing work points to the third big piece of their strategy, a remarkably forward-thinking approach to building for the future. They weren't just thinking about the here and now. They were actively building the infrastructure, the technology, and the leaders that would let their work keep going and growing. Okay, how cool is this? Youth Wing Go's computer. They actually got a microcomputer to help streamline all their operations. And just for a little historical perspective, this state-of-the-art machine had a whopping 64 kilobytes of RAM. It sounds tiny now, of course, but back in 1985, this is a serious investment in the future. But their investment in people was even more important. They created this clear path for leadership. First, they promoted from within, getting 6 of their own youth members onto the main TRC management committee. Then, they connected their members to national leadership camps. And finally, they pushed them to apply for these prestigious international programs. And these were not just small-time opportunities. Take the ASEAN-Japan Youth Ship Program. It sent young leaders on a 2-month tour of Southeast Asia. It was a massive deal. The newsletter even notes that the government spent about 25,000 Singapore dollars on each participant. That is a huge vote of confidence in the potential of these young leaders. So what does this all add up to? You've got education, community, leadership. All these threads weave together to create their real legacy, which is all about forging this strong, confident identity, one that's both Tamil and Singaporean. At a youth festival, the guest of honor was Mrs. Ursula Kwa, the principal of BD Secondary School, and she was just deeply moved by what she saw. She congratulated the Youth Wing for their impressive list of achievements and activities and their dedication. But it's what she said next that really captures their impact. She said that all their work helped build a Singaporean who has a national identity, and the ethnic identity has made Singapore diverse, but a united country. She saw it so clearly. They weren't creating some separate, isolated identity. They were building a richer, dual identity that actually strengthened the entire nation. And that's really the beautiful paradox of their work, isn't it? By working so hard to celebrate their own heritage, they didn't divide, they added depth. In Mrs. Kwa's words, it created a richness, a variety and quality which is unique in the world. They were proving that you could be deeply rooted in your own culture while also being a passionate, contributing citizen of a multicultural nation. So as we close this little time capsule, we're left with a question for our own time. With all our modern tools and challenges, what can this dusty newsletter from 1985 teach us about building a real community today? Well, it shows us the timeless ingredients: dedication, vision, and the simple belief that a small group of people really can become a beacon of hope.